Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have with us an incredible musician. This gentleman has been on the scene for over 30 years and has worked with many greats from Ahmad Jamal to Diane Reeves, George Duke, Yo-Yo Ma, Herbie Hancock, Sting, and Dave Holland, to name a few. He is a drummer, composer, and educator. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Billy Kilson. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Happy New Year to your fans.
Happy New
as well.
Year, man. So good to have you on today. You know, Billy, thanks so much for coming on Jazz Talk. And you've been on the scene, man, for a while. You've played with so many great musicians. I know a lot of your work, but I'd like to know more about your humble beginnings, man, your upbringing, how a lot of this, how all this started. Now, I understand that you're from Washington, D.C.
That is correct. That is correct.
Wow, wow. Now, one of the interesting things about your background, man, you actually found drums a little later. You actually started with trumpet, then trombone, and then you found drums. Tell us about that.
You did your homework. You did your homework. How you find that out, man?
Hey,
yes,
man,
I did. Yes, I did.
Research.
I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds about why I switched over, but I will say my grandmother probably would tell you that all that was just a sideshow. That boy's going to play drums. Because I used to be kicking and beating on the pots and pans before I could walk. So I'm sure at the humble beginnings, the drums, I tell my students, they ask the same question. And I would say to them, you know what, the drum stool, I didn't have a drum set when I was younger, but the drum throne said, yo, Billy, come here, man, sit down. I'm like, man, I'm doing this right now. I'm doing this. No. Come sit down. But I'm trying to do this. Come over here and sit down. That's pretty much what happened, bro.
Interesting.
Drums called me. I wish I wanted to play them, but they made me play them.
Now, what were you listening to at the time, or what were some of your influences coming up during that time?
James Brown.
James Brown. Okay.
Begins and ends with James Brown. Still to this day, for sure. It's James Brown.
James Brown. What an icon, man. And I guess when you were 16 or in your teens, didn't you go to a school or like a performing arts school?
Oh man, I wish. No, I did not. I went to a camp, Maryland Gifted and Talented. My folks moved to Maryland when I was 13, 14. But so I went to high school in McDonough High School. So there was like in the boondocks, a town called Pomfret, Maryland. And so my 12th grade year, I think, 11, 12, it gets foggy after a while. It's been 40 years since I graduated high school. So I went to Maryland Gifted Talent, and I think it was outside of Baltimore, Towson. And I went there one summer, just before the year before I went to Berkeley. Yeah, so I guess it would be my 16th, I guess junior year, yes, going to senior year.
Okay. Now, during that time, I guess when you were in your teens, I understand that you heard a recording of Stanley Clarke. I guess it was his debut album. You heard a drummer on there that messed you up named Tony Williams, and it really influenced you, huh?
It was the second, because I think that if you actually
Children Are Forever, I think, was his first one.
Children Are Forever, but so this was called Journey to Love. So this would be his third one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because he did a lot of people confuse his first debut record. His debut record was the one that's called Stanley Clarke, actually.
Right. That's the Brown album.
Right. So so I'm saying this wrong. Tony is on that record. I'm thinking about Steve Gadd. He's on the Journey to Love record. Stanley, that's correct. That's the first time I heard Tony Williams. Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it about his playing, Billy, that really got you? Because like I said, I understand that, of course, you started checking out some Miles and listening to some of those, I guess, maybe earlier albums like The Four and More and some of the other ones. And it was something about his drumming style that really, made you perk up and like, man, this is interesting.
Well, I think when I look back, if I think retrospectively, rock now, I don't know how, and I don't want to get too personal how old you are, but when I was younger, I guess teenage years, rearing years, radio was segregated. There was only Black music on the soul stations. Yeah. And then a little further up on the dial, if you will, it would be the rock and roll stations and no jazz stations. So I really wasn't privy, or there wasn't too much. I wasn't introduced to rock music too much. So I would say the sound of Tony's drum when he played a beat, especially on the Stanley Clarke record, I had heard peripherally, drummers playing rock beats, if you will. I really didn't know much about Hendrix. Of course, you heard Funkadelic, but it wasn't It was still kind of funky. So Tony played that kind of vibe, but then it had his fills. I didn't know this drummer who I'm about to mention. His fills reminded me of Max Roach, but it had that kind of vibe, you know, that kind of linear motion, that evenness between either playing doubles, single stroke. Now I'm getting into the weeds. Double stroke rudiments, double stroke, single strokes, parallels, and even flams. I had never heard drums played like that. I hadn't heard them speak in that sense. And that struck me. And it seemed not that the drummers before, like Clive Stubblefield or like Jabo Starks, you know, they're in the core of my soul, the way they play. But Tony, man, it was something emotional about the way he used the cymbals to the toms and from the toms back to the cymbals. I hadn't heard that motion before, and still maintaining a groove inside of his fills. You could feel the beat, you could feel the music, and that, dare I mention, was melodic. Hence, again, Max Roach.
Yeah.
That struck me, and I hadn't heard the drum speak like that.
Yeah. Now, I guess you did a little bit of research and you found out about his teacher, Alan Dawson. And I guess Alan's worked with so many greats other than Tony. I mean, Cindy Blackman, Santana, and others are, influenced by him. But you made that move, man, to go to Berkeley in 1980 or something like that, early 80s.
Yes, 1980. I graduated in 1980, June, and then a little less than 4 months later, I'm at Berklee College of Music. But my quest was to study with Alan, absolutely. Yeah. But when I got to Berklee, I had known that once I got there, the spring semester prior, Alan had left the school.
Wow.
He had left May of 1980. Here I am in Boston. I migrated to Boston to come to study with Alan, if you will. And he's not at the school. And I didn't know then either, which I know now being a teacher at Berklee, a professor there, you don't have choices your first couple of semesters anyway. Right. So, and Alan Dawson had a long list. I was able to cut in line, but this was like maybe 4 semesters later or 3 semesters later. I was able to cut in line, and he had he had pretty large homes, a ranch house, and in the basement he had 2 drum sets, vibraphone, and so 1 drum set actually, and the vibraphone. So he taught out of his house, and so I would make that trek from Boston, downtown Boston, if you will, in the Back Bay area, through to his home in Lexington.
That's incredible, man. Hey, working with him, Billy, what do you think you learned most from him? Because like I said, his name comes up a lot. And as I said, you mentioned.
Jeez, what did I learn most from him? What did I learn most of him besides being humble and try to see my drum sets and see myself? I tell everyone when I gave it away. Yes, you do study with people like Ahmad Jamal and Hank Jones, and I was able to study with them, not just perform with them, study with them.
Right.
But I always say that before I played with Ahmad Jamal, and bear with me, before I'm pivoting slightly. Before I played with Ahmad Jamal, I was just a drummer. But after playing with Ahmad Jamal, I became a musician. But by way, if you will, of Alan Dawson's teachings. During my last, I guess, oh my gosh, man. During my last 10 years studying with Alan, I studied with him for a little over 7 years, man. You know, after graduating Berklee. And my last month, I guess I was into my first 3 or 4 months of studying, performing with Ahmad Jamal. I went to my lesson and he gave me the awful, surprising news that that day was going to be our last lesson. And so what do I remember? What did he take? What I take from that? And the most important thing that I learned from him is probably being a humbling musician on and off the bandstand. If I have to say so.
Yeah, interesting. Now, I was going to say, during that time period when you were going to school at Berklee, I guess you were going there with a lot of, great musicians who are on the scene now.
Yeah, they call it the golden years. They call it the
That's what
golden
I'm
years
saying.
now.
Yeah, I've had so many on from Greg Osby to many Cindy Blackman Santana, Donald Harrison. I can go through the list, but you were there with some heavy hitters during that time, and just an amazing.
Jeff Tain Watts, Marvin
Yeah,
Smitty Smith. Well, we lost Rollis Roney to
yeah,
COVID.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, man! The dean of Berkeley now, dean of performance, Ronald Savage. He was at Berkeley at the same time. Will Calhoun came a couple of years after me.
Wasn't Terry Lynn Carrington there too eventually?
Terry Lynn Carrington was there a few years after me. Yes, and she's at the Global now. She's teaching at Berkeley as well.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. Now, getting back to you just mentioned some names, Hank Jones and Ahmad Jamal. Man, my gosh, to be playing with legends like that, coming out of school, man, what was it like working with Ahmad Jamal? I mean, this guy's a legend, and of course,
man, he was a tyrant, man. He was a tyrant, man.
Really?
That was the best and the most difficult gigs simultaneously, man.
Really?
Oh my gosh, man. He had all these hand signals, and he would even point to he would be, wow, this is an interesting setup. So like, let's say, he's playing piano this way. And so he would point to like which symbol he wanted me to play, And I used to say, man, leave me alone, man. I'm the drummer, man. Don't tell me how to play drums, man. What are you doing? I said it to myself, not to Mr. Jamal.
Right.
I'm like, man, I got this. But I recorded a few gigs. And once I got past the fact that he's directing me, if you will, and being the conductor of the trio, I said, man, this dude is orchestrating. So when I say he taught me how to be a musician, I learned in certain situations, or like situational music like setting, I'm thinking, so when he's playing that chord, sounds better when I play this ride cymbal with the bell. When he's playing that change, sounds better when I play on the rim and play the tom-toms. When he's playing that chord and that change, or this kind of energy, I should play, well, I really don't have to play Elvin, play brushes to counter that. He taught me all of that, man. Textures. He taught me all of that, man.
Yeah.
He wouldn't tell you, he would, like, the short story. We're rehearsing, we did the gig. And it was, I think, Birds of Paradise. And we thinking we're killing, myself and the bass player, man. Great gig. Ahmad Jamal, Mr. Jamal, I call him. We'll walk into the dressing room. He walked into the dressing room and he said, gentlemen, do not put your coats on. We're rehearsing tonight. I'm like, dude, the gig's, it's like 1 a.m., man. 1:15 maybe. It's like, hang around, we're rehearsing. I booked the club 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. for us to rehearse. Yeah, he was a tyrant.
Wow, man, that's incredible.
For the better, they don't make them like Mr. Jamal anymore.
Yeah.
And, but for the better, I have to say I'm a much better musician because of that experience.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He had a lot of big influence on a lot of pianists, and I know Miles Davis liked him a lot too because of his use of space.
I think so, and I think so. I mean, sheesh, man, if you listen to not just like any of those recordings in the mid '50s, cooking, relaxing, working, steaming, round midnight, it's almost like, I don't know if it's true, but there was like some scuffle between him and Red Garland. I have no idea because I had the fortune to work with Walter Davis, and he told me about a lot about that. Him and Miles were real close, but he said, and Red Garland was a boxer. He loved Ahmad so much, he would tell Red Garland, play these block chords and do this and play this like this. And Red Garland, dude, man, come on, man. So I understood those stories by the time, but I played with Ahmad Jamal. I was like, oh, so that's that connection too.
Yeah, interesting. Now, about I'd say maybe a few weeks or a month ago, I had lovely lady, great jazz singer, on the show, and you played with her for quite a bit, Diane Reeves.
Oh my
gosh. How'd you hook up with her, man? What was it like working with Diane?
Actually, there was a gig I did in Boston when I was still living in Boston, and I was playing at a club, and they were.
Oh, you froze. You still with me? Hey, you froze. Let's see here. Okay, we're back. We just had a some technical difficulties. We're back, but yeah, Billy, we were talking about Diane Reeves, man. How did you get to work with her, the great jazz vocalist?
Before I answer that, you don't know what that means when you say we had to stop because we had technical difficulties. That makes me think I'm on a gig. I'm back. It's like I had this weird flash that I'm on a live gig and they're filming, and they say, "Oh, we had to stop for technical difficulties." Oh, we're playing, and the monitor doesn't work, the microphone doesn't work. I'm like, oh no, it's COVID. I'm in my basement. That's right. Oh damn. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, so I'm not dogging you, Preston. It's all good, but I'm just like, damn, that's right. Diane, man, speaking of that, I feel bad for the younger musicians because how I got that gig wasn't even networking, man. It was just the band was in town. This social distance and, physical distance, that's not natural for any human being, let alone damn musicians, man. Yeah. We need the whole social gathering, man. That's so important and vibrant to our health, man.
Yes.
But anyway, just that it was just like after the gig, these guys were saying, let's go hear this guitar player. Now, this was my first gig, one of my earliest gigs in town, but this guitar player was a known guitar player in town. And I was subbing on that gig, actually. And so the drummer and the piano player, the bass player didn't show up, but the drummer and the piano player for Diane Reeves actually went to the gig to hang out, and they knew the guitar player. Yeah. They were like, drummers, the drummer for Diane, his name is Michael Baker, amazing drummer. He's amazing drummer, one of my heroes. And so he was like, yeah, I know that's your boy playing guitar, but who's playing drums? And they came up on stage on the break, and they're like, Michael was straight up, man, you sound great, blase. I'm leaving the gig. Now, mind you, Preston, I'm thinking, this is a joke, man, because Diane was Diane even then. This is like, of course, the viewers probably don't remember VH1 unless they're my age. But Diane was on VH1 because No Brothers was on MTV at that time. So Diane was on VH1 and BET. Yeah. She was on she had a video of Better Days. And so I'm thinking, you're not talking about that Diane Reeves. Man, come on, man. Long story short, I get a FedEx. FedEx is brand new. I get a tape in the mail, all these charts, and say, learn these tunes. We'll see you in LA in 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, whoa, wait. Like, slow down, man. What's going on? Man, Alan Dawson taught me how to be a musician. Ahmad Jamal taught me how to be a musician. I studied those charts like crazy, man. And I went out to LA. Better Days, Phil go bloom. Ding.
Oh man.
History, man. Diane was like, okay, we'll hang for a bit.
And it's funny too. It's funny, Billy, when I was talking to her, that's her probably most well-known song of her whole career.
Absolutely.
Because she and I were laughing, and she said some people don't know the title of that song. They just call it the grandmom song,
Exactly.
But
play that grandma song. I won't be able to get play that grandma song.
Oh, she's fantastic, man. And also you work with the late George Duke too, man. Fantastic musician. What was it like working with George, man?
Big Daddy, man. I miss him so much, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. He was just the way you see him, the most jovial, humble, talking about humility, man. I mean, you would not know his resume. No way you would know that. But, like airport hanging or whatever we're doing, backstage. But at rehearsal, man, even on the gig, he was like having fun. But at rehearsal, that man was no joke. He was very serious. In the studio, he's all about business. He's all about business. He's like, he would say, I want the groove to be this way, that way. He was no holds barred, serious cat, man. Very serious about his music. However, he taught me how to have fun, how to be, how to juxtapose the two. You got to be serious in your craft. You have to have integrity in what you're doing. But you need to have fun doing it. It's kind of like, well, maybe your fans might know this, your viewers might know LeBron, how he plays. He's a cheerful, serious, he's a joyful cat. I'm sure other cats have their own views about them. But George was like that. George knew how to balance the two, how to be, so sincere about what we're doing in our craft, and how to entertain and invite, if you will, the audience on stage. And he was a huge hero of mine, even growing up back, but before I heard Stanley Clarke, and I didn't even know George had done that stuff with Stanley Clarke, because my age, Reach For It was the tune, man. That was the record, man. Dookie Stick, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
No doubt, man. Dookie Stick, man. Talk about Funkadelic. It was all this. So watching him, whenever he would rarely be loose at rehearsal, but he would be loose at rehearsal. He would go into his George Clinton thing, because we played Dookie Stick, we played Reach For It and all that. So it was, oh man, I miss him, man. Corrine as well, his wife, she would call the crib. She called me and she would invite me to a gig, or not to a gig, but she would say, George wants to have you do this. She was like his secretary almost. So I miss her as well, man, almost as much as I miss George.
Yeah.
Big Daddy is what we call him. Well, folks that, are really close to him, Big Daddy is what they call him. He had him on the back of his chair in the studio, Big Daddy on the back of the chair in the studio. It's cool.
What an incredible career he had. You just made me think. I remember that short-lived group that he had with Alfonso Johnson, Billy Cobham, and John Schofield.
Oh my gosh, man. Yes.
Yes. Oh, that was some good stuff. But yeah, man, you've worked with so many giants, Billy. I'm just fascinated by your career, man. You've worked with Herbie Hancock too. Man, what was it like working with that giant?
Well, you know what? I did a couple of gigs with Herbie, and it wasn't actually so much like where Vinny and what he does now. Right. There was a couple of things. I think Dave Holland introduced me to him, and I did like a thing for the Monk Institute. We've done a few things for that, and I'd worked with Herbie for that. Whenever I see him, I was talking to my son, because sadly, when Donald Byrd passed away, I went to his funeral at what's the name of the church uptown in Harlem? I can't think the name of the church. I'm looking at Herbie's picture now with my son. And he's like, oh, I said, Herbie, how you got to take a picture of my son. He said, Killer Kilson. That was his nickname for me. That's his nickname. But yes, I mean, a master. I didn't work with him as much as I did with George, no doubt. But I mean, when I did play with him, it was a treat, and I learned so much from that man, for sure.
Incredible. Yeah, he and Wayne Shorter, just.
I never worked with Wayne. Wayne is on that list, man. I did play with Ron, but Wayne is on that list, man. I never, ever, ever have played with Wayne. So I'm praying that he stays healthy and get that opportunity.
Yeah. Billy, did you ever get a chance to meet Tony Williams?
Oh my gosh, man. I wish I could show you are you kidding me, man? I don't know if you can see my phone.
Oh, wow. I can see it. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
That picture is okay. Can't get full now. Be careful now, Preston. Because that whole thing of hearing Tony, studying with Alan, and meeting Tony, and getting to know him, if you will, not as well as his band members, if you will, but getting to know him enough where he would see me and he would say, hey, Billy, what's up? And I remember, man, it's probably about 18 months before he died. And we were staying in a hotel. It's in Japan, in the lobby of the hotel. And it's one of the few times that I was early for the ride to leave the hotel. And Tony was for him, I guess he was on time, but for me, I was early, and Tony was just standing there. And we were chatting, man. And, we were chatting. And I still remember to this day, I said that, man, you sounded great. I love the quintet. He said, I love the quintet too, Billy, but I want to get back to my Lifetime roots. I want to go back to that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be on point if you did that. He said, I know, I want to get back. I'm missing that. And so we were, kept chatting. And he said that, what are you going to be doing? I said, well, I'm going back to Canada. I'm going to Canada because I'm doing this gig at the Montreal Jazz Fest. He said, so am I. He was playing with Jan Hammer. So they were doing a little bit of that fusion. What I heard from what I heard on the Stanley Clarke records of him playing that kind of vibe, that Lifetime style. And I'm backstage and thinking, oh man, when he gets back to doing that Lifetime, Believe It kind of thing.
I know. Yeah.
No, man. the stupid man, he went there for gallstones.
I know,
man. He
man.
went to the hospital for gallstones.
51 years old.
I know.
51 years old, and what a drummer, man. He's influenced so many people. I mean, Cindy Blackman Santana is obsessed with him. She loves Tony Williams.
I think there's only, if there is such a thing, and I don't think there is, if there is such a thing that anyone has that DNA, drum DNA, that's close to a sound, that's Cindy, man. And that Cindy was a senior when I first went to Berkeley. So this is all that Tony Allen connection, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And Cindy was doing her senior recital my first semester. I guess she stayed an extra, she skipped it, whatever. But she was playing, and I thought she had her cymbals high. They were like flat, they were like flat like this. So she had them high like Tony did, and from the 70s. And I'm like, forget the gender. Who's playing drums, man? Cindy's a beautiful woman, woman. But my gosh, man, when she sat behind the drums, she had the Angela Davis fro. So, that already got me, actually, because I grew up like Angela Davis. Oh, Angela Davis, my God.
Yeah, man.
So I'm thinking, man, Angela Davis playing drums, man. But then she started playing all that Tony stuff. I'm like, oh no, who's the drum? No joke. And we talked about that a lot too whenever I see her. And, a lot of people don't know that she prefers, don't be mad at me, Cindy, but she prefers to be called Cynthia. She said that, that everyone calls her Cindy, but she prefers actually Cynthia. Actually,
Billy, she was actually the first person on my show. I interviewed her March of last year. She was in Baltimore, Keystone Corner. And right after that, COVID hit. But, she and I talked a lot about a lot of different things. But, everything from the Gresh drum set, we talked about Tony and just some rare stuff. She's heard of him. But, she loved him. Man, I'm also interested in you. How'd you hook up with Sting, man? You played with Sting, too.
I played with him through meeting and working with Chris Bodie for, oh, my gosh, man. Because Chris Bodie replaced Branford.
Okay.
When Branford left Sting's band,
gotcha.
Chris Bodie, I think that's right. It might be someone in between, but I might be wrong. So forgive me on the timeline there. But he played that chair, if you will, like, because Sting had a horn player. Mm-hmm. And so our first tour with Chris, when I played with Chris, which I tell everyone, I like to tell everyone to tease those guys, I put the O in Chris's name. What I mean is, before I played with Chris, everybody would say Chris Body, but they call him Chris Bodie after I played with him. So right. I like to say that. But our first gig, we opened for Sting. And Sting was like, what's the drummer, man? Who's that drummer? Who's that drummer? And later on, there was a few gigs that we would do within that tenure with Chris. So he would use the rhythm section with Chris, without Chris. We did a few sheets. We did that DVD, a couple of DVDs with Sting. So that networking again, And if we had the social distance, I don't think any of that would have happened. But again, networking, like meeting Diane, same thing.
Man, oh man.
And that's the first get. That's not true. Steve Lukather was the first guy I played with that I said, oh, so that's how you play rock and roll. So playing with Sting and he's playing that bass, bro, I'm thinking, oh, okay, I see what's up. And then there was a whole, talking about school, that was another school. And seeing a cat being able to play and sing made me think that what would it have been like to play with Bootsy, man? Yeah. In the funk and play with Bootsy? Oh my gosh, man.
One of the things, Billy, that I always love about you, man, is your energy behind the set. When I'm watching you play, man, you're just feeling it, grooving it. It's almost like you're doing your own dance, man, when you're playing the drums. And it's just really exciting to watch. I was also going to ask you, man, how did you end up playing with Yo-Yo Ma? That was quite interesting.
That's another sheath. It's a little bit complicated. I think the manager, hope I have this right, and I mean, it's not like it's private thing. The manager saw us playing with Chris, I think, somewhere. So myself, Bob Hurst, and Billy Childs. And we had done something. So Yo-Yo Ma's manager said, Yo-Yo Ma wants to use those guys to do a jazz record. But Chris is like, no, y'all can't do it without me. You can't do it without me. So he pulled us in to do this. I think it was a Christmas record or jazz record or something. And we did the session. I don't even remember where we did it. If we did it in LA or what. But yes, we did that. I met him and we hooked up through a Chris Bodie gig. Absolutely. He pulled in the rhythm section, actually.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. It's just interesting what you were saying, all these connections, working with this person and then boom, you're introduced to this artist and it just keeps going. But
well, it's like a fraternity. You know what I mean, bro?
Exactly.
It's like a fraternity. Absolutely.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to ask you about this musician, one of my favorite musicians, one of the greats of the last 50 years or so, Mr. Dave Holland. Man, how'd you hook up with Dave and some of those recordings you guys did together, man, like Prime Directive and What Goes Around, some of my favorite things, done by him. But how did you meet Dave and get to work with him?
First, now when I said about Ahmad Jamal, best and worst gig, Dave was the best gig I did, man.
Yeah.
Hands down. That's the best gig I did. Again, networking. I was playing with a band. No, that's not right. I was playing with New England Conservatory. They had a Jazz Composers Alliance, and they could not get a drummer. Now it's the New England Conservatory students. I'm an ex-Berkeley student at that time. There was all the grad students. And so I don't have a master's, but I was, I went to Berkeley. So I'm playing with the Jazz Composers Alliance. We're doing a concert because they couldn't find a jazz drummer. And like, so the jazz drummer in town in Boston, one of the jazz drummers, not the jazz drummer, but one of the jazz drummers in town is Billy Kilson, and he should be able to do it. So cool. The bass player, So the bass player, there was I think it was Andrew Sewell did it first. Then they had the next series was Dave. Dave was the next Jazz Composer Alliance. He was next composer. He was the not runner-up, but the second on the queue to do that. So he walked in and he gives us the music, and then he's like, "Who's this drummer?" I'm like, "How you doing? My name's Billy Kilson." He's like, "So you go to New England?" And I'm like, "No, I don't go to New England. I'm working at the phone company, by the way. Ma Bell in Boston." And so he's like, "Cool, we talk. We played. Now, when I did this with Dave, she's Preston. This was 1986, I want to say. 80, I just graduated, so 86, 87. And we played it to get this gig. At this church, we did the tunes. It was a big band. We played all of Dave's tunes, and we played. So after the gig, Dave's like, "Give me a number," the thing that we used to do back in the day. Give me the number. Now, ironically, I said this wrong. The bass player that came to that gig was Ahmad Jamal's bass player.
Oh, wow.
So I played with Ahmad Jamal first. And then subsequently, like when I say I played with Ahmad Jamal 88, 89, I played with Dave 95. Now I subbed for a drummer named Gene Jackson, who was a credible drummer. Yeah. And he played with Herbie at the time. So he was playing with Herbie and playing with Dave. That conflicted. So I started subbing for Gene. Dave's like, "Where do I know you from?" And I said, "We played together in the Jazz Composers Alliance 6 or 7 years ago." "Man, you want some of this?" I'm like, "You darn right I want some of this, man. Are you kidding me?" So our first gig was in London at Ronnie Scott's.
Oh, wow.
And I was playing with Steve Nelson, a guy named Eric Person, and myself as a quartet. And after that, the rest is history, man. Greatest, definitely, by hands down, greatest gig I've done in my life. And Dave taught me so much of the ins and outs, how to play with a bass player. Now, Ahmad Jamal taught me how to adapt so quick. I would say, besides the humility that Alan gave me, he taught me the skills and tools I needed to adapt quickly. And I utilized all of that, all of those teachings. And by the time I came to Dave, it was the perfect platform for me. And all of it came to fruition his dare I use the word genius, where he understood, whether it was Chris Potter or Steve Wilson, and I mentioned Steve Nelson or Robin Eubanks, he understood our strengths and our weaknesses, and he knew how to nurture that. I guess that's from Miles. I guess
I was about to mention that. You know, he was telling me when I talked to him some Miles Davis stories. He says, you know, they would be prepared to go on stage, Billy, and perform, and Miles would change the tunes on them at the last minute. I guess to keep them on their toes. And he told that to Herbie Hancock too. He says, "I pay you guys to practice on the bandstand." You know,
Woo, yes,
I
it's a
know, you
paid
know.
practice. I did hear that before. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, Dave is fantastic, man. And you know, speaking of Robin, I've had him and Kevin on the show as well.
Okay.
Great musicians. But I wanted to ask you, you're also an educator, man. And you know, we were talking about Berkeley. And are you still a professor? Are you still teaching there?
Since COVID, since the beginning of COVID, since March 13th is when I came home and came off the road. Yes, I do teach, but via this platform.
Online.
Zoom.
Okay, online.
Yes.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. Is that something that you really enjoy doing as much as performing?
Oh my gosh, man.
Because it seems like your heart is really in your students, you know, from what I understand.
That's where I get my stimulus, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I get my stimulus from my students, no doubt, no question. Yes, I do miss performing, but there's no other level of gratification and satisfaction that I get from when one of my students say, "I didn't know I could do that, Mr. Kilson. Oh, I didn't know it could go like that, or I didn't know I could perform. I didn't know I could take that chance. I didn't know if I saw it that way, this would happen." Dude, you have no idea, Preston. You have no, and I had no clue. I mean, my mama has not been walking the earth. Oh, she's, man, 22 years now. But she would tell me, and she always tell me, she would say after the gig, she's go, "You taught them something, boy. You taught them." So after my performance, I'm like, "Go ahead. You know, your mama's like your number one fan, you know." Like,
yeah.
Taught them something, boy. She. But I think she's telling me, and I brought that to, if you will, pedigree of trying to figure out how to teach, which way should I teach, what style of teaching, and goes back to my teacher, Alan Dawson, and understanding what's the most important thing that I'm getting from that is getting them to find their own voice.
Right.
And I can't describe how that feels, Preston, to watch, like, very few that I've had students from their first or second semester to graduation, but I've had some. And just watching that arc of that growth, man, oh my gosh. And to see them doing it, you know, I can't describe that, man. Yeah, and there are worse days is probably when I had a bad day teaching, but most days are all incredible days, man. It's an incredible journey, and this is year number 6. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, man.
That is beautiful, man. And it definitely, I can see your passion for that. I also wanted to ask you, Billy, you know, now that you've had a lot of, I guess, time, like a lot of musicians, you're home, you know, quarantine, you're not touring. What is Billy Kilson listening to? You know, as far as your music, if I were to come over to your crib and hang out with you, what is Billy listening to right now?
Oh man. See, you got me nervous now because I got to tell on myself, man. Oh man, you know what? I don't listen to a lot of I mean, I practice. You can see the kid here. Yeah. Now you can say, now, Billy, you practicing with something. Yeah, I practice. I still practice with, you know, Miles Davis. When you ask me, you know, I practice with Elvin Jones, you know, Buddy Rich, Max, you know, Tony, you know, but listening, when you say listening to music, that means just sitting down like I used to do, and if you will, and put on the iTunes or whatever playlist and just like, man, that's killing. I love, man, I don't do that much. It's, you know, sports radio, you know, watching my Knicks fail, watching the Washington football team whenever I can, watch them fail. They've been doing pretty good this year, but I don't listen to a lot. Now, there is a sort of music that I do like, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. I know you're going to have this public. My wife, it's not public. Not public. It's not a secret that my wife's Japanese. And so New Year's, when you ask, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Okay, New Year's Eve is a big deal in Japan. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. It's like we have, and so this is still a continuum of the holiday. It starts New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, the 2nd through the 3rd. And our ritual, if you will, now this is something I experienced the first time I went to Japan and spent New Year's Eve there. I'm getting to your question. New Year's Eve there 20 years ago, 2000, when no one wanted to travel. Everyone was scared to travel. It's 1999 New Year's. They were like, oh, I don't want to travel. And we're like, let's go. I'll take you home. It's damn near free.
Right.
They have this thing called Kohaku Utakasen, which is just singing event. A singing event, folk songs, pop songs, and it could be a 5-hour. It's a little over 5-hour series. We all sit as a family. We have this big spread, like Thanksgiving dinner, and we watch this 5.5-hour variety show, if you will, of singing. And they have these contests with they call it red, white, not men against women. One color's red, one color's white, the flag. Well, there's this music that to me is the blues of Japan. And it's called enka. And that's what I'm into.
That's awesome, man.
That's what I'm into.
Yeah.
And why am I into that? Dude, is most of it, well, some of the pop stuff has a backbeat, but most of it has the koto. There's no drums, man. I can free myself. There's not complicated changes. It's not going to be in the odd, it might be in 3/4, but it's not going to remind me of, oh man, do you hear that chord? Man, what's that bass line? Oh man, so if you hear I can play this beat against that. I don't have to do that.
Right,
I don't have to do that. When I hear enka, I'm just lost. And I'm the nickname my children gave me. I'm the nickname my parents-in-law gave me. Yeah. I'm still my mother's little boy. I can go back there, and just be so innocent. But when I listen to, which I still, like I said, I still practice. But when I'm in that, then I'm deep in here. And I'm, I become centered, if you will, self-centered as a drummer, right? For that minute, but I want to release myself of that. And that's how I release myself. Where maybe some musicians, or not some musicians, some fans might hear something of me playing drums on, and they feel the way I feel about when I hear enka singer, if that makes sense.
That's beautiful, man. That you open yourself up, and I always say a lot of the best musicians, of course, are open and listen to everything. They were surprised when Charlie Parker was talking about he likes country music, and they said, "You like country music?" He says, "Yeah, man. Listen to the stories they're telling."
Oh man, well, see, that's what I'm saying. I have to ask my wife. None of you there. Boko kanai. Nani shite ru? Kore wa nan desu ka? So I have to ask her to translate. And I'm asking her, what are they saying? Why are they moving? Like, what's this song about? And it is country. It's country blues, man. Yeah. But it's Japanese folk songs from, after the war. And that's what gets me the most, the resilience of these people. Like brothers, the resilience that we have. Yeah. Not the same level now. Not the same level. Don't misunderstand me. But it's that resilience. So it's that period that they're singing of when they're trying to get on their feet after that, because as us as citizens, we get caught up in, the governments and, they're doing that and whatever oppression that's happening, that's here. But the level I like to think that's the common thread of all of us is all of us musicians. Yeah. We have a common thread. We're looking for that place of freedom, if you will, through what we're doing. We're looking for that free place. That place that we can just be our, childlike self, if you will. And I get a lot of that in that music. And so that's what I listen to if I'm deep in it, or dare I say, my friend did hook me up with this box set of Aretha. Now I might have to go there too now.
And she's
I have to go there too now. I have to go there too now. Yeah.
She's brilliant. You just think about her Everyone just looks at her as a singer, but also a great pianist too. Aretha
Oh
was very
man, and talking about storyteller.
yeah.
You can't get it. I mean, the reason why there's folks that can sing now, but the reason why they can't sing, this is what Diane does so amazing. The reason why they can't sing Aretha's song, when she says respect, y'all don't understand, man. You don't understand what she's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When she says sing that song, when she sings "Call Me," come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Yeah.
The way she drops that, oh man, come on, man. So it's Inca, and I have to, it's Aretha. I have to sneak that in there once I come down here to my room. Lights off. It's me and Aretha. And I'm like, damn. Woo.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, Billy, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk. Man, you're a class act. Love you, love your music. And hopefully once this COVID is over, man, you can get to my area. You know the area very well, Baltimore, D.C. area, and perform. I usually go to the Monk Institute now, the Herbie Hancock Institute. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do it, because the last one we had was December 2019. And I was there that evening with Pat, Liz Wright, Cassandra Wilson, and all of them.
Oh,
Herbie.
wow.
Yeah, they were all there, but it'd be good to see you, man. Once this is over.
Yeah, because I think Baltimore was one of the places I was supposed to play with David Sanborn. That was one of the first gigs that got canceled. You're supposed to come there, I think, around April, man.
Oh man, hopefully you guys will get a chance to do that. And it was funny. Speaking of David, I've had Omar Hakim on the show, and you remind me so much of Omar. You guys have just great energy. And I was talking to David about that show that he used to have back in the day with Marcus Miller called Sunday Night Music.
Absolutely.
And we were talking about that. I says, man, that's a show that needs to be back on. And David was like, Preston, talk to NBC. It'd be good to have that on. Because I said, you guys had everybody on there. Miles Davis, the Pat Metheny Group, Sonny Rollins, Carlos Santana, Wayne Shorter. Everybody was on there. Al Jarreau,
That show played a major influence in me deciding what I want to do.
Wow.
And when I saw that, and I think I was maybe 14, 15 when they did that show. David has been slowly trying to revive it, because you can check a couple of podcasts.
Yeah.
He's doing that. We've been doing it with Michael McDonald. I think Sting's going to do a couple. We've had Corey Henry on. And so we've been doing that remote, actually.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Well, hang on. I'm about to close out the show.
Cool.
Well, you've heard it from drummer Billy Kilson. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.